Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and everyone out there, thank you so much for tuning in. We have a great show planned for you today with computer and technology news for the hour. So everyone, welcome into the show. First things first, computeramerica.com. Check it out. We have show notes and past shows, future shows. We have the live video stream. We have, of course, we have articles, reviews, and things like that. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks here, we should be setting up some contests as well. I know that everyone has been missing those, and that's something that we phased out, but we are going to start phasing back in here eventually. So with that being said, everyone, let's go ahead and just, hey, why don't we get things started? Because as I said before, we're going to be doing the show solo, obviously with the holidays around, and we have a lot of guests coming up. I wanted to dedicate a couple of days here, it's going to be like this day and like maybe Friday, to only computer and technology news. And trust me, there's a lot to cover. So let's go ahead and get started with computer and technology news, brought to you by Computer America. So I think our first story that we're going to do is, and we have a lot that include privacy and things like that, but I think the first one we're going to do is about spam calls. And spam calls, I don't have to tell you, they're a problem. According to this article here from TechCrunch, they say that spam calls grew 18% in 2019. And that's in an annual report by Truecaller. They published it just today, and they said that the Stockholm-based firm said that users worldwide received 26 billion spam calls between January and October this year, which is up from about 17.7 billion. So obviously, not an ideal situation, and it's only getting worse. That's not what I wanted to highlight, though. Of course, I wanted to, we're going to go through the article, but a little spoiler alert, there is an end in sight. You know, this is not going to be a systemic problem forever. There is a solution, and it's coming in the form of, well, just wait till next year, and we will talk about stir shaken. But let's go ahead and talk about the article here. And they even have some nice graphics. If you're watching the video portion, you can see the chart here that they had. And these are top 20 countries affected by spam calls in 2019. And let's just say Brazil, sorry, you're getting a lot of phone calls that you probably shouldn't. So let's go ahead and talk about this, saying that the United States remains the 8th most spam country, where the volume of robocalls increased by 35% this year. In a separate report earlier this year, Truecaller, same company who put out the second report, estimated that 43 million Americans were scammed last year and lost about $10.5 billion. How that happens, I'm sure that there are scams ranging everything from, telling you that we need to update your system. You may have malware, or this is the Social Security office or something like that, and we need you to verify information, or hey, we need you to transfer some money. We overpaid you. Like, there are any number of scams that either take advantage of someone, or really take advantage of everyone's, being naive, or preying on the goodwill of others, or they're wanting to help. They have very sophisticated ways of getting money out of people, and unfortunately the elderly in a lot of cases. Now, they say that the growth is despite the efforts local carriers and authorities have made in the country. Brazil again topped the list for the most spam country, saying that the culprit behind the increasingly growing spam calls in the country are its own telecom operators and service providers. TrueCall said that in the last 12 months, calls from operators have increased from 32 to 48%. Saying, quote, these calls are typically seeking to provide special offers and upselling data plans amongst other services. Scam calls continue to be a big problem in Brazil. 2 years ago, only 1% of the top spammers were scam related, but last year it went up to 20%, and this year 26%. It's one of those things that the risk to reward is so low. The ability to make robocalls, call millions of people, it's a problem. It's it's super simple, and you can hide it by spoofing your number. You can hide it by having shell corporations. It's very hard to actually pin down and say these people are breaking the law, and they can kind of go on about their business without struggle. And I think I actually recall an article about this where here in the United States you have the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, who should be in charge of spam calls. They said that they charged something like $2 billion in violations for spam calls. Obviously, if you set up one of these robo farms, you can think of things like, the one out of Miami or things like that. They can say, hey, you are running afoul of our regulations, and you owe a fine of, what they should have done was a fine of about $2 billion across the board. And then, well, they did, but the problem is, guess how much they actually got from these from these robocallers. And if you're guessing anywhere in an order of magnitude, you are wrong. $4,000 was all they were able to collect from these robocallers. They can charge millions or billions of dollars in fines, but if you can only collect $4,000, how is that really a punishment? It's impossible to get to these people. So they say that, so this article from TechCrunch continues, one of the takeaways from the report is just how complex it is to understand the nature of these spam calls. There's no common thread behind these calls. In some markets, such as South Africa, which is 6th in the report, spammers are mostly making fraudulent tech support calls and conducting job offer scams. And those job offer scams, if I recall what those look like, they were, we'd like to offer you a job. All you have to do is pay for, processing fees of your application, and then they're going to slowly string you along to get access to your bank account, send them a blank check so that they know where to send the money to, or give them your wiring information so that they can send you your first paycheck, before you even work a day, and eventually, they just take all the money out. So there are many ways that really prey on the vulnerable, but it works. They say in some other markets like Chile, its debt collectors are placing 72% of all spam calls in the nation. In the United Arab Emirates, ranked 12th in the report, telecom operators were the ones making most of the pesky calls. So, with that being said, Peru ranks 2nd, Indonesia ranked 3rd, and these spam calls have exploded in the nation, with Peru users received more than 30 spam calls in... here we go. In Peru, users received more than 30 spam calls in the month. Most of the calls were made by financial services that are looking to upsell credit cards and loans. And obviously, the ones that are operating here in the United States are operating outside the law. If law enforcement could actually find a place where this is happening, bust down the door and make arrests, then they would. But mostly they're happening in warehouses and, shell corporations. It's very hard to track down where they're coming from. And even they're coming from outside the country. Very hard to do that. I don't know what's going to happen in the future with these countries where the spam calls are legal and coming from established organizations like the telecom company, like debt collectors, like even their own government. That just seems like it's only going to get worse. And at this point, if you are like most people out there, the phone application on your smartphone is not really something that you use. You send everything to voicemail. If it looks like a number that you might know, you might listen to the message, and then you might call someone back. But overall, people are just not picking up the phone. So they mentioned that in Indonesia, the spam call volume has doubled in a single year. As the nation goes through tough times, scammers have tried to leverage on it, and they say that one of the more common scams is the One Ring scam. And they say that another scam, I don't even know what the One Ring scam is, another scam that has been going on lately is the fake hospital injury call, where someone would call you and tell you that a family member or a friend is hospitalized and needs immediate treatment, and you need to send them money in order for them to treat the patient. Which, wow, that is just, like I said, they prey on the vulnerable. They prey on people who have a sense of empathy and saying, oh, I of course want my friend or family member to live. Here's $500. Go ahead and start the treatment. And of course, completely fake. The position of India, where the number of mobile subscribers has ballooned from 1 million to more than 1 billion in 2 decades. So 1 million mobile phone users in, let's say, 1999, up to 2 billion phone users in 2019 is 5th on the table. Pretty good. They say it's better than before, but spam calls are still growing in the nation. In India, it's the telecom operator and telemarketers that are making up for more than 80% of the spam calls. Obviously, as their economy is transformed, more people are going to look to take advantage of that. So, and they also mentioned the spam SMS, which is text messaging as well. They have it here. Looks like Ethiopia. And these are the average SMS per month. Think about this. I would just turn notifications off at this point. Ethiopia, you're looking at 119 spam texts every month. South Africa, Kenya, Brazil, Colombia round out the top 5, and you're looking at anywhere from 70 to 120. The United States doesn't actually even rank on this one. It looks like many others out there, just doesn't happen. Most of these look like the Middle East. Most of these look like places in Africa. Think Morocco, Malaysia, Tunisia, Indonesia, Sri Lanka, places like that. I think that isn't as big of a deal because spam texting is easier to detect and it's easier to vet. So, because obviously with the spam call, you only have the split-second decision to pick up or not pick up. Based on a phone number, whereas a text message, it is completely, you can read the whole thing and you can choose to ignore it or not. So there you go. I found that interesting. Spam calls. And by the way, just my own input here was that the solution to these robocalls is the ability for carriers to implement a technology called Stir/Shaken. And it's essentially what HTTPS is to web addresses, it is to phone calls. So you are going to have a third party, an intermediary, essentially verify that the number that is placed in the call is the number that shows up on the caller's ID. If it doesn't, it will give you a warning. It will say, this is not the number that's trying to call you, or it will just simply show the original number, which if it has a Brazilian number and you're in the United States who does no business in Brazil, you'll know not to pick up the phone. It's just it's just one of these ways that you're going to be able to verify who is on the other end of the line so that they don't spoof it to look like either coming from your area code or even, the first 3 digits of your phone number. They're not going to be able to get to something very similar so that they think, this is someone I might know. An answer is coming, and those technologies should be in place by the end of 2020 to completely, or at least mostly, reduce the amounts of spam calls. And even if they do get through, then at least you'll know what a spam call looks like. So there you go. Okay, so there's that one. Things are going to get better. That's the point of that. Now, Computer America, one of the most popular shows that we've done recently, and just by the numbers, one of the most popular shows that we did was speaking of phones, the Linux phone, the Librem 5. We had the president of the company on talking about the new Librem 5 that should be coming out here soon, completely designed from the floor up, everything from the parts manufactured to the operating system. It was just a straight new phone from that really embraced open source, and really the Linux community was all behind this, made by the company Purism, and we had the president of Purism on the show. And again, a lot of you responded. A lot of you said, that you were looking forward to this phone. A lot of you said that it looked really, really, really nice. You've been backing it for a while. And yet, another number of you said, oh, this is total malarkey. It's not even going to come out. This is all vaporware. It's just not going to happen. Well, I'm happy to update everyone and say that since we had the interview about 3 weeks ago, and they said that the phones were going to come out, well, looks like the first of the backers for the phone are finally getting their working devices. Librem 5 backers have begun receiving their Linux phones, saying that the first of the backers have begun receiving mostly working prototype devices. And I know it's going to take time, and hopefully the hardware is all okay, and it's just going to be a matter of software and updating and turning things on. But hey, it's more than I think a lot of people even expected, was to get a working device into people's hands. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started here, saying that when Ars spoke to Purism founder Todd Weaver, who we had on the show as well, the Librem 5 had been shipping for a month, but not to backers, only to the employees and inside developers. Weaver talked a little about the unexpected hardware issues that the company had been experiencing late in the game, including a batch of phone boards missing a 10 kilo ohm resistor, and he gave us an update schedule for when the phones would resume shipping. More importantly, Weaver said backers would begin receiving their phones the first week of December, and the company has met this latest deadline on time. On November 27th, Ars Reader posted a comment on Thread saying, "Just because I can, hello from my freshly received Librem 5 phone, and no, I don't work for Purism, I'm just an early backer," end quote. He was also kind enough to share the unboxing pictures and some commentary about what exactly a Librem 5 phone from the Birch shipment is and what it isn't. So he said that this is not really a phone yet. There's no audio when attempting to place a phone call. The cameras also don't appear to work yet. He says installing and opening up Cheese is the very basic Linux video application. He says that I just get a message saying no device found. There's also effectively no power management system, so the Librem doesn't last long on battery. It takes a long time to charge as well. All things that it sounds like they'll be able to update as time goes on. Now, the software needs polish in a lot of places. He notes that the few apps so far understand mobile screen layouts, and there's no obvious notice that few apps so far understand mobile screen layouts, and there's no obvious indication as to which apps have or have not been updated. The charging LED light doesn't light up when the phone is off, although the phone is actually charging, and fine tunables like kinetic scroll still need tuning. Now, with that said, he recommends putting down the pitchfork and snuffing the torches for now. This isn't supposed to be a finished working retail phone. It's mostly a working prototype and made available in very small numbers to extremely early backers who knew what they were getting into. And, I think that when people say, oh, there's a new phone on the market, there's a new option on the market, that people expect almost like what's already out there. Whatever is an industry standard, that's what people expect. And so that's whenever you bring on a new website, your website has to be perfectly functional from the get-go because people expect it. There now is, I guess, Librem has to temper expectations, and they're doing this by sending it to people who are, as I said, very early backers, people who essentially they are the ones who know this is going to take some time to really put some polish on. It's going to take time to get all the apps. And when we talked to Mr. Todd Weaver, he mentioned that they have a great internal team that is developing these apps to work on smartphones, but they're doing this all in-house. They're doing this all, they're kind of doing this all by themselves, and anything that happens, they really have to do it on their own, and they don't have the benefit of having a workforce the size of Apple or Samsung or Huawei, but instead it's going to be something that is privacy focused, open source, and hopefully over time a very competitive option. So let's go ahead and jump to the conclusion here real quick. The article goes on, plenty of pictures. If you want to check those out, we highly recommend it. But they say that they say that Ars perennially recommends that anyone considering backing a crowdfunding project, remember, you are not placing an order for a retail product. You're getting in on producing a product, as in there's a strong possibility, and we've mentioned this on the show as well. When you back a Kickstarter, you're essentially saying, hey, I believe in your idea. Here's some money. Maybe I'll get something out of this, but mostly I'm giving you money because I believe in your idea. What you get is almost always never what you pay for. And there's even a very strong possibility that you will get nothing when you put money into a Kickstarter. A Kickstarter is simply a way to bring in funds, and it is not a pre-order. It is, starting something. Saying that you're voting with your wallet on the direction you think that an industry should take and seeing if it works out in practice. Saying that we're still not entirely happy with the way Purism handled communication with the Aspen and Birch batches of the Librem 5, but it looks like the company has made some serious accomplishments worth talking about. Purism has also gotten further than Canonical ever did with the Ubuntu Touch, saying that the Touch never felt like real Linux at all, nor did it succeed as a purely mobile experience despite Canonical's much greater financial resources. If you just want to buy the phone, the Librem 5 is not ready for you yet, nor is it a particularly safe long-term bet. Because, very true, whatever money that they're running on, they have to raise themselves. And they said, they said very explicitly they don't take money from venture capital, so they're working on a much tighter budget than if someone else were to come in and just, kind of pull all the levers that they possibly could. But then they would have to make concessions to privacy and the build and the operating system and more. So they said that, but if you want to push the mobile phone industry in a Linuxier direction and help a software ecosystem that brings a real Linux experience to a mobile form factor, the Librem 5 looks like a good place to pitch in and help. And obviously what they mean by a Linux type of ecosystem, their core tenets again are open source, privacy first, essentially hardware that you can work with. Such as a removable battery. That's something that smartphones nowadays just will not do. So there you go. Librem 5 actually shipping to select consumers. And honestly, not bad. It's not iPhone thin. It's, it's pretty clunky, but at the same time, as I said before, it's a working prototype. There's a lot to do, but to everyone out there that left a comment on our video to, kind of said that, hey, this is never going to happen, the Librem 5 the Librem 5 has officially shipped to limited people. That's not what vaporware does. So there you go. Okay. There's that story. Let's go ahead and continue on here. Plenty of stories and plenty of time. Okay. I saw this one and I really like, lists with top 10 and top 5 and, best apps and things like that. So let's go ahead and talk about this. I do not endorse any of these, but I do like lists. So this is the Apple highlights some of the best and most popular apps of 2019. Let's see what all of you are interested in with the Apple App Store. They said that, so here's the list, and I apologize if I don't know all of these, but here we go. First, so the iPhone app of the year is the Spectre camera by Lux Optics. I've never even heard, honestly, I don't explore the App Store as much as I should. I try to do it for video games, and boy, do I just absolutely hate mobile games. They are predatory. They are, they throw ads in there as much as they can. You feel more like you're being advertised to than you are being entertained. And that's just the way for so many different for games out there. But so the first one, the app of the year, is the Spectre, and I actually found the website here, spectre.cam. It looks like a way to turn your smartphone into a smarter camera and a long exposure camera, saying that long exposures have always been limited by technical factors, from keeping the camera steady to guessing the amount of light. And they said that we've taken care of that. It's an AI-powered shutter for your phone, for your iPhone, letting you create amazing long exposure from the team that brought you Halide. There you go. So there you go. Long exposure. Pretty interesting. So let's go ahead and continue on here. So that was the app of the year. First one, if you like photography and iPhones, maybe the Spectre camera app is for you. The iPad app of the year, Flow by Moleskine. I'm assuming Flow is a type of productivity. Let's see, Mac app of the year, Affinity Publishers. Not huge into Mac, so there you go. Let's see. So iPhone game of the year, Sky Children of the Light by That Game Company. I'll have to give that one a try if Apple says this is one of the best, because I've tried some of their worst, I think. And Sky Children of the Light. Check that out. And it seems to have really good scores on many of the other review sites. Let's see. Yep. So with that being said, as usual, Apple also provided details on the year's most downloaded apps. You'll probably see many of the titles coming from miles away, but still, it's interesting to see how certain apps, companies, and platforms stack up over time. Saying that, for instance, TikTok, it's an unabashed phenomenon now, albeit one that's causing concern in the upper echelons of multiple governments, because TikTok is... I think we have a story about them and sending a lot of data to China. So we'll cover that in a moment. But they said that this year it was Apple's fourth most downloaded free iPhone app. And they said that while YouTube, Instagram, and Snapchat continue to claim the first, second, and third place, respectively, Bitmoji dropped out of the top 10 entirely. Guess those custom clothes weren't enough to keep people hooked. And Bitmoji is just, that's definitely a fad. So, I don't know. The full list here, as I said, YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok is now number 4, Facebook Messenger 5, Gmail, Netflix, Facebook, Google Maps, and Amazon. Yeah. I could totally see every one of those being on everyone's phone. And of course, the iPad ones, not too clear on what all those are. Looks like a lot of weather apps, productivity, some photo editing, such as like Touch Retouch, Afterlight Photo Editor, and more. So there you go. Let's see. So a lot of the obvious ones, some phone games. We're just going to go ahead and include this article in the show notes if you want to check these out. Maybe get some ideas for things that you could do, and hey, maybe if you wanted to find some good games and things like that, Apple publishes themselves. So there you go. We'll include that in the show notes. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and continue on here. And, because we mentioned it in passing, this one coming to us from the BBC, and it has to do with TikTok sent U.S. user data to China, and that is what's claimed in a lawsuit. So here's my thing, is that, TikTok is a Chinese company. TikTok is a Chinese application distributed on U.S. phones, and I'm wondering why that's such an issue that a Chinese company would send China U.S. data if it's a Chinese application in U.S. countries. I don't know. So the lawsuit accuses the company of surreptitiously taking content without user consent, saying that owned by Beijing-based ByteDance, TikTok has built up a keen U.S. fan base. TikTok, which is thought to have about 500 million users worldwide, has previously said that it does not store U.S. data on Chinese servers. However, the platform is facing mounting pressure in North America over data collection and censorship concerns. So obviously one of those is that there's a lot going on with Hong Kong. We've covered that on the show before. It's still going on. And whenever a video goes viral that has any mention of Hong Kong, what's happening there, Chinese influence on Hong Kong, and of course, and Chinese censorship, those videos mysteriously get taken down for, very broad definitions of like inciting terrorism or things like that. So that could of course raise concerns. So they said that the lawsuit claims that TikTok clandestinely vacuumed up and transferred to servers in China vast quantities of private and personally identifiable user data. It alleges that the data could be used to identify, profile, and track users in the U.S. now and in the future. The plaintiff is named as Misty Hong, a Californian-based university student. Ms. Hong claims that she downloaded the app this year but did not create an account. Months later, she alleges that the firm had created an account for her and surreptitiously took draft videos she had created but never intended to publish. The data was sent to 2 servers in China, backed by Tencent and Alibaba. So the lawsuit argues that TikTok unfairly profits from secret harvesting of private data in that they vast targeted advertising revenues and profits. TikTok did not immediately respond to a request for comment. So there you go. And obviously, we're not going to get into what is TikTok. It's think of it like Vine, but mashed up to music. Very, very popular and only getting more so. They said that in October, the company said that it had never been asked by the Chinese government to remove any content and would not do so if asked. They say that they operate a similar but separate version of the app in China known as Douyin. It says all U.S. user data is stored in the United States with a backup in Singapore. Still, the company found itself in hot water last week when they apologized to a U.S. teenager who was blocked from the service after she posted a viral clip. Well, actually, not about Hong Kong, but this time about the Uyghur Muslims in China. So, yeah, it's every time we hear about China, like there seems to be a pretty massive push for, and it's happening legislatively to some extent, it's happening in the public eye to some extent, but it really goes to show just how much influence the Chinese market is having on economies, on companies, on, even just cultures. And you can't just say that, we should reprimand China. Well, China is unfortunately everywhere. So, yeah, and we're only now starting to get, kind of a picture of what that looks like to reprimand a country that just does so much business around the world. It's, it's pretty incredible. Now, censorship, all that kind of thing. Let's see if we can find something a little bit more fun. How about some statistics? It is now Tuesday, the day after Black Friday. I hope all of you are giving your burning credit cards a break because apparently someone out there bought something. Check this one out. $9.2 billion in U.S. online sales. I think I'm joking when I say put down the credit cards, but $9.2 billion in online sales. Smartphones accounted for a record $3 billion of those sales. And I completely understand that. I know you may be wondering, why is that such a big deal that smartphones are being tracked as a way that people are spending money? And it's because optimizing your store and being able to have a good mobile experience is going to be key in the future for pushing your product. You can't just redirect people to your online site and make it very, whatever. I think that storefronts that have a good online store are going to definitely outperform those who don't in the future. So Cyber Monday, they say that they broke another e-commerce record. U.S. shoppers racked up a total $9.2 billion in online sales, and that's according to Adobe. So to put that number into perspective, at its peak, consumers were spending $11 million per minute. And they said that this was the first day to see sales via smartphones break the $3 billion mark. And this was $1.3 billion more than shoppers spent a year ago. Saying that, there has so far been just over $72 billion spent online since the beginning of November. And I think that's the bigger number. Cyber Monday, Black Friday, whatever. A lot of these deals are happening month long and season long, even into December. So don't even think that, you had to shop on Black Friday or Cyber Monday. Whatever deals are there were just kind of token deals. Trust me, these companies want to sell you products, and hey, they're going to continue to happen. So they said that there is an undercurrent of more sluggish buying than had been anticipated following the pattern set by Thanksgiving and Black Friday. The total actually fell just short of what Adobe had expected for the day, which was $9.4 billion. Isn't that just like an economist to be like, 9.2, that's pretty good, but we were expecting 9.4, so, you guys really underperformed. They said that they expected an increase of 19%, but it was actually an increase of 16.5%. They said that should be noted that the forecast for Salesforce was even more conservative. It projected that the Cyber Monday sales would total $8 billion in the U.S., representing a 15% and 12% year-over-year growth, respectively. So, hey, they beat Salesforce in their projection. Who knew? And by they, I mean all of you. Congratulations. That's despite very aggressive pricing on the part of online sellers. Retailers unlocked sales earlier to combat a shorter shopping season. And while continuing to drive up promotion of the big branded days, including Black Friday and Cyber Monday, consumers capitalized on deals and ramped up spending, especially on smartphones, where activity increased on days when shoppers were snowed or rained in. Pretty interesting. Then, obviously, if users are, trapped in their home, then online spending increases, which makes sense, kind of on its face. But, they're not just sitting at home, trying to weather out the weather. No, they're sitting at home bored and buying things. So top items sold include Frozen 2 toys, LOL Surprise Dolls, Nerf products, Madden 20, Nintendo Switch, Jedi Fallen Order, Samsung TV, Fire TV, AirPods, and air fryers. Yes, all of you love air fried food. It's wonderful. Less fat, all the fried goodness. Who knew? One report claims that Apple may have sold as many as 3 million pairs of AirPods for Black Friday until Cyber Monday. And the best deals on the day were for TVs, saying that 19% savings on average. So the final figures of the day might have a slight shift as Adobe finishes all of its tallies. It follows a morning total of $473 million and sales passing the $5 billion mark at the 5 p.m. Pacific time, a sign that shows just how much shopping is done online. They have a lot more numbers in here. Adobe, of course, tracks this very, very closely. These are numbers that economists will look. Whenever economists talk about consumer confidence, consumer spending, this is the season where consumer spending is at its strongest and should be at its strongest. These numbers are indicative of how people feel about the economy, how they feel about spending, how they feel about the months to come. Can we drop $200 on a new TV? Can we drop $1,000 on all of these presents, all these goodies? And if they weren't going to spend as much as they thought they would, then it would be another sign of impending doom. But instead, we look to be just on track. So there you go. We're not, Computer America is not an economy show. I can't tell you if the economy is going for, a downturn or anything like that. Just know that, hey, we met expectations. And if we try for nothing here on Computer America, we, of course, meet expectations. We are at expectations. That's what we do. So let's go ahead and get started here. And this has, and let's see, I just had the article up here. You know what? Nah. Let's go ahead and talk about, I don't want to talk about taxes. So many numbers. That would just make me mad too. All right, how about Apple? Yeah, we can go ahead and pick on Apple for a little bit. Our next story, coming to us from Engadget, Apple and the Butterfly keyboard. If you don't know about the hellstorm that is the MacBook Butterfly keyboard mechanism, boy, strap in. This is going to be a big one for you. Apple loses bid to stop class action lawsuit over the MacBook keyboards, saying that it faces claims that it hid the extent of the Butterfly keyboard's problems. And this is by John Fingus and Engadget. And yeah, Apple will have to face a class action lawsuit over faulty MacBook keyboards. Federal Judge Edward Davila has tossed out Apple's attempt to dismiss a suit accusing the company of not only hiding the fragility of the MacBook Butterfly keyboards, but of failing to provide an effective fix or full compensation for customers who paid for the repairs. The suit claims that Apple violated multiple states' consumer protection laws, potentially leaving the company on the hook for users who had to deal with the sticky or unresponsive keys when even the slightest amount of debris slipped into the keyboard. And I trust that every person here listening to Computer America has dealt with the keyboard before, they are breeding grounds and just literal catch-alls for crumbs, for hairs, for skin flakes, for so much that can get into a keyboard. Ladies and gentlemen, wash your keyboards, get a mechanical keyboard, and wash it on the regular. They collect debris, so you can see where this could be a problem. The lawsuit covers many Apple laptops with Butterfly keyboards, starting with the original 12-inch MacBook from 2015 and including the MacBook Pro models produced in 2016 or later. Saying that they asked Apple for comment, it might face an uphill battle in court, saying that while the company has never said that the Butterfly keyboard design was inherently flawed, it instituted repair programs for the keyboard design and even added the latest 13-inch MacBook Pro to the program the moment it became available. Also, the 16-inch MacBook Pro conspicuously reverted to scissor switches in what may be seen as a tacit acknowledgement that the earlier technology is too fragile. And the point of the Butterfly keyboard was that it was supposed to be a very light feeling where you kind of just press it, you get an instant response, and you don't get the noise. It's just, a very responsive kind of key. The problem though is that you have these switches that the mechanism, any kind of as the article said, any kind of debris would cause the mechanism to stick. So you either have keys that don't actually press when you press on them, or keys that will lock the mechanism while it's depressed, and you won't be able to essentially use that key. You have to kind of hit it, hopefully let it unjam itself, and otherwise it's just a horrible user experience. Most mechanical keyboards out there, or most laptops out there use a scissor switch, which essentially is just, kind of two arms, and they, kind of do one of these numbers. Think of like a pair of scissors on its side, and as you kind of open them all the way, it would depress the number, and then of course it would spring back into place. Been working very well. It can be a bit louder. It can be a bit, depending on what kind of switch that you use. It can be, I think that Butterfly switches were something that Apple wanted to do just to be different and, kind of give their, different is good, I guess, in Apple's mind. So they could have just taken this as, this is what we are going to do, and it makes our keyboard feel different. And because, we have a premium product, different is going to be better. Not so much the case. And as you can see, the repair program, they're being sued over it. So Definitely see how that works out. I'm betting a rebate, class action lawsuit. Lawyers are going to get rich. And if you have one of these, you are going to get a probably like a $30 gift card to iTunes. So good luck with that. When, by the way, iTunes doesn't exist anymore. Now, let's go ahead and continue on here. And this next one, this is pretty interesting. So I actually have two very interesting stories here. And one of them has to do with crypto cracking. You may hear from time to time here on the show, we talk about, there we go. We talk about the AES encryption. 256 is generally the accepted military level. If you have AES 256 encryption, then you are safe. That's considered the standard. That's what military communications are sent as. The amount of time it takes to crack something like that, while not impossible, is very, very prohibitive. It would take many years. So now we're looking at the new record for breaking this kind of encryption, and they've gone all the way up to 795 bits. So instead of 256, which is the standard, we are now talking about 795, which is like almost three times as many variables to account for. And they're able to break it. So they said that researchers have reached a new milestone in the annals of cryptography and the factoring of the largest RSA key size ever computed on a matching computation of the largest ever integer discrete algorithm. Saying that new records of this type occur on the regular as the performance of the computer hardware increases over time. Think about it. If you're able to crack a 256 encryption, let's just say in the matter of like 2 weeks, give it like 3 or 4 years, computers are, twice as fast, twice over again, you're going to, of course, just do it faster. But now we have even a better one. And it's not due to just the general speediness of new computers. No, this actually has to do with some algorithms that were put in place. Many public key encryption algorithms rely on extremely large numbers that are the product of two prime numbers. Other encryption algorithms base their security on the difficulty of solving discrete logarithmic problems, and with sufficiently big enough key sizes, there is no way to crack the encryption they provide. The factoring of the large numbers and the computing of a discrete logarithm defeat the cryptographic assurances for a given key size and force users to ratchet up the number of bits of entropy it uses. So, they said that the new record include the factoring of RSA 240, an RSA key that has 240 decimal digits and a size of 795 bits. The same team of researchers who computed a discrete logarithm of the same size and the previous records were the factoring in 2010 of RSA 768. So obviously, hey, now we're looking at 795. Now, they said that the sum of the computational time for both of these new records is 4,000 core years using the Intel Xeon Gold 6130 CPU, running at 2.1 gigahertz as a reference. So, like previous records, these ones were accomplished using a complex algorithm, and which can be used to perform both integer factoring, blah, 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 rough breakdown. So, here we go. They have these numbers here. You can see the amount of time this would take. And when they say core years, that means that, let's just say they have like 100 processors, each one having maybe, 20, or let's just say 48 cores each, or 50 cores each. So they have 20 processors, 50 cores each. You're looking at, what is that? I think like I'm already lost my own numbers. 200 cores. In each one of those, you can have hyper-threading, so maybe double that to 400 cores. So each one of those, you're running every second. You're actually running 400 core seconds, and you multiply that up. And of course, that's just using 20 processors or something like that. You can, of course, scale that up to much, much larger numbers if you're looking at large institutions where you can have thousands and thousands of cores. So it took them, if you just had one core, it would take you 2,400 years. Check that out. So they said that's the first time that the record for the integer factorization and discrete logarithm have been broken together. It's the first time the two records have been set using the same hardware and software. These aren't the only things setting the milestone apart from the previous ones. Saying that, the new records are set and the edicts of Moore's Law inevitably play a major role. Moore's Law is, of course, every 18 months or so, you have double the number of transistors in a computer chip. So they said that the increase in transistors in turn boosts the computing power of computers running them, giving computers increased speed and performance over time. And there you go. This one, however, is driven less by Moore's Law. So obviously the increase of transistors in the hardware since 2016 when the previous record was set, hey, it's only been like 2 years. It's not as big of a deal as you would think. So the increase, as the article goes on to say, is from with software handles. And of course, artificial intelligence, I'm sure, played a role. The article goes on to cite all the different researchers and all the different facilities that they operate in. And overall, I just want to say, very, very cool. Nice to hear that our encryption is getting ever less important. Now, with that in mind, this next article coming to us from The Verge about Amazon, we have talked a number of times to IBM Research about their quantum computing efforts. We highly recommend you go back and take a listen to those if you didn't catch them. We had some of the lead researchers on the quantum computer division here on the show to explain, ever so unsuccessfully to my simple brain, how this actually works. Well, maybe it might become simpler if IBM had some competition. And it looks like, Amazon is going to do just that. Amazon is now offering quantum computing as a service, which is probably how quantum computing will go. Saying that it's a development environment, but baby steps. Saying that for now it's pretty limited to it's a pretty limited affair where you will mean Amazon's corporate customer, and where service means the ability to experiment by running simulations on a set of existing quantum computers from partners like D-Wave, IonQ, and Rigetti. So, they said that this new service is designed to let you get some hands-on experience with the qubits and quantum circuits. You can build and test your own circuits in a simulated environment and then run them on an actual quantum computer, which happens so often. They have built simulations as to how a quantum computer will react if you run a certain simulation or if you have certain inputs. They don't actually prefer you to run it on a quantum computer first, not because you'll break it or anything like that, but more, not many people know how to program in this kind of environment. Not many people know how to program quantum computers. So if you can run it in a virtualized environment, you can at least weed out the ones that will have no possible outcome before you start to capitalize the physical quantum computer's time. So theoretically, quantum computers can calculate far faster than traditional supercomputers, thanks to the fact that their bits can exist in multiple states. And currently you have either 1 or 0, but currently you can have either off, on, or both at the same time. And so when Google claimed that it achieved 54 qubit quantum computer, well, even that was a little bit of hyperbole. The company says its machine successfully made a calculation that would take the world's most powerful supercomputer 10,000 years. And just to keep it in mind, there are certain aspects that currently a supercomputer today will always outperform a quantum computer tomorrow. It's just a matter of what kind of calculations are you trying to do, and can it be optimized for a quantum computer? When it comes to rendering graphics, when it comes to, just doing very simple or different kinds of calculations that we're used to, current CPUs and GPUs are vastly superior. But for other types of calculations, maybe those that are specialized to quantum computing, of course, a quantum computer will handle, like Google's test, it will handle it in a matter of hours as opposed to 10,000 years for a traditional supercomputer. It doesn't mean that one is better than the other. It just means that there are different purposes behind each. Obviously, if you are trying to eat soup, and this might be a very stupid analogy, but this is the way I've kind of, have it in my head. If you're trying to eat soup, trust me, a bulldozer, you're going to find it very difficult to eat soup with a bulldozer. But if you have a spoon, it's great for soup. But if you're trying to use a spoon to excavate a giant hole in the ground, hey, maybe the bulldozer is going to be much, much better. So there you go. There's my analogy. Supercomputers of today are not going to be obsolete, and quantum computer is not going to take over overnight, but within the next 10, 20, 30 years, it will have a spot in our daily lives. You just probably won't know it. You aren't going to go to the store and buy a quantum computer, but services that you use every single day are going to leverage the ability of what quantum computers can do. Now, we have only a couple minutes here. I have time for one more story, and I think let's go ahead and talk about, there are a couple of these that are just going to take too much time. All right, just real quick. Mozilla and Mozilla Firefox, you know them. They make the web browser. They said that Mozilla removes all Avast Firefox extensions. There you go. So if you're a fan of Avast and of course AVG as well, you may notice that all of their add-ons for the Firefox browser were removed, saying that it appears that Mozilla removed these extensions from its store. They were not blocked or blacklisted. You can see a list that they include in the article here. They were not blocked or blacklisted. They were just removed altogether. So the creator of AdBlock Plus published an analysis of Avast back in October 2018. He said he discovered that Avast extension transmitted data to Avast that provided Avast with browsing history information. The data that the extension submits exceeds what is necessary to function according to the security researcher. So the extension includes the full address of the page, the title. Full address of the page, the title, the refer, and other data in the request. The data is submitted when pages are open, but also when tabs are switched. On search pages, every single link in the page is submitted as well. He concluded that the collecting of data was not an oversight. The company states in a privacy policy that it uses anonymized clickstream data for cross-product direct marketing, cross-product development, and third-party trend analytics. Mozilla is in talks with Avast, according to Vladimir Pallant, and possible scenarios are that Mozilla will add the extensions to its block list that it maintains, or will request Avast to make changes to the extension before they're reinstated. Kudos to Mozilla for doing that. Obviously, they are taking more data than they possibly need. So everyone, we are just about flat out of time. I want to thank everyone so much for tuning into the show here. And hey, checking out what we do here. Hopefully you learned something. A lot of news out there. And hey, everyone, be sure to tune in tomorrow as we have the one, the only Mr. Mike Cermak join us here on Computer America once again. Let's see. So with that being said, I'm trying to think any announcements. First of all, CES 2020 coming up. Definitely keep an eye out for that. We'll have a lot of different kinds of content, and of course, hopefully, a lot of guests and shows and things, and really great guests. And we're looking forward to the great convention. Also, beyond that, holiday season is coming up. The longest break that Computer America takes is going to be coming up by the end of December. I think it starts like December 21st, and we'll be back January 2nd. So everyone mark your calendars, keep track. We'll be back though, more Computer America. And hey, I think we're heading into our 29th year of production. Pretty cool. So everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to Computer America. Until next time, have a great day. Thank you so much. Bye everyone.